There's so many kernels of wisdom I want to tap into, but I want to get past some of the stupid questions. Have you guys, and I'm assuming yes, but I mean, have you guys ever worked predictive?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually,
right?
I don't talk about it much. I wrote two books that were the first CMM level 5 compliant software process
Oh my
that was
gosh.
published outside of the DoD. Yeah.
You know what?
Amazing.
You don't become a great consultant without making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
Any
Are
consultant
you saying the only way to make mistakes is to work predictive?
no, but
Almost.
I learned a lot about what
Yeah.
not to do
Yeah.
when I was, reading. We used to have methodologies and binders sitting on the shelf, and you would follow templates and steps prescriptively,
Yeah.
hoping to get a great result at the end. And you learn that it doesn't usually work.
Yeah.
And same thing with RUP, by the way. Like we brag about our experience with RUP, but it wasn't perfect either.
Yeah.
It had an amazing focus on architecture and the importance of good architecture and mitigating risk early in the project. But it was overly specific in terms of requirements, detailed use cases and things, which can work. But certainly, if I were to do it again, we would certainly lighten up the way we did requirements, and we did.
Yeah.
But that's a whole part of the agile evolution. And by the way, there are still some situations where predictive works.
Yeah.
There's still some situations
absolutely.
where a detailed
Absolutely.
use case
I'm a big fan of predictive.
mean-
I just think it's a like, and you mentioned it, it's one in chapter 1 and chapter 2. It's the context that you have to consider. Let me ask you another question. Since you've been in the business for such a long time, I got involved in the IT game in the 90s and into the 2000s, direction where there were a lot of fusions of big companies and having to integrate their IT systems. And then I went through the Y2K thing for a while, and let me ask you a question. Back in the day, in the 80s, I mean, IT has always been on the radar for upper management, but if I recall correctly, it used to be. It was kind of a place of awe for management. They were like, we don't know what the heck it is, but we know we need it. And let me ask you a question. Was there a different level of freedom in how you got your work back then? And the second part of the question was, did the MBA, the business approach to wanting to control everything, change that? And is that where a little bit of this over administration through predictive came in? So the first part of my question, in the 80s, did they was way of working, was that just the style?
No, actually, I think no. The reason we needed WOW was because the way it used to be was not about context specific.
So even in the 80s, it was restricted.
Additionally, what's really important to understand is that actually in the early days of IT, it was considered not strategic. It was considered a cost function. Yeah. And usually the IT department reported up through finance and accounting. It's only after that people really appreciated the true strategic value of IT, and then CIOs became more popular. But no, back in the day, it was very cost focused and prescriptive, and it wasn't fun at all.
Yeah. And it depends, right? Like every organization is different, but certainly in general, like the bigger, the Fortune 500, the government agencies, were all very prescriptive. And in some ways, and some of them still are, earlier I was talking about the data space, which I'm back to working in again. And in many organizations are still throwing off their old predictive ways of thinking around data because it's been a spectacular failure. If you look at the data quality issues that most organizations face, how they're struggling with AI, often because of data quality issues, they've really got, and some of that's project management problems as well. But there's been, they're still struggling there because there hasn't been enough thought leadership in that space up until maybe the last 5 years has gotten better, but certainly up before then, it's been pretty rough for the data community. And frankly, they didn't have to change. Like that was the biggest problem there, was that nobody, held their feet to the fire really. So they were slow, and they ran into some issues. So, but one of the things about DA is that we brought the data stuff in, right? Because we recognized, if you're doing any sort of IT work, data is going to be involved, but it's not the center of the, it's important, but it's generally not the center of the universe, regardless of what the data people might think. But it's still important. We still need to work together effectively. We need to get the job done, and we need to not make a mess of everything. And to be fair, the data people, they get stuck with these messes that the developers generally create for many reasons, but and both business and technical reasons. But so they're gun shy without a doubt. But it's still, at the end of the day, they are still responsible, or they should be responsible, and they should be held responsible. So so it's getting better out there, but certainly
the reason I asked that question kind of intuitively, I have kind of I have a management background, and I think one of the biggest points of contention in regardless what form of project management you're working on is the sponsor. In German, we call it the Auftraggeber and the Auftragnehmer dilemma, which is the sponsor versus the project manager. And in German, it's very distinct because the word Auftrag means contract. So you have the contract giver and the contract taker. It's kind of like the pitcher and catcher type thing. And there, there's a lot of weight behind it. And I think that if this is from my consulting background, my experience is no matter how much classical management sponsors, and most of them have a management background and not always an IT background or a project management background, they love the illusion of a plan. They want to have the scope, time, and cost, and they want to approve it, and they want to have the illusion of a king, where they can say, I can dictate, I put forth, I decree that I allow you to go forth, and this is the time and the money and the work you will do, and if not, I'll chop off your head. Which I think Agile is brilliant at pointing out that that's so far away from reality. If you're talking about anything that has a certain level of complexity, that you're shooting yourself in the knee, even attempting it. Let me ask you a question. Somebody who's listening to you guys might say, but these guys, if they've been dealing with Agile back in the 80s, no wonder they're pushing the Agile agenda and not acknowledging that predictive has value, which you're not doing. I know you're not. We'll talk about the hybrid approach a little bit later on. But you have a great oversight of the evolution of Agile before Agile was even hip.